In a first-of-its-kind case, a judge is punishing Johnson & Johnson for what the court says is its role in the opioid crisis. The judge ordered the healthcare giant to pay $572 million to the state of Oklahoma. He ruled the company downplayed the risks of opioids, which the state blames for more than 4,000 deaths.
The judge's decision says Johnson & Johnson used the phrase pseudo-addiction to convince doctors that patients who showed signs of addiction were actually being undertreated for pain. The suggested remedy for this undertreatment was to prescribe still more opioids. Johnson & Johnson plans to appeal the ruling. It says in a statement, quote, "The state's claims violate fundamental principles of due process by seeking to hold a company liable for conduct permitted under federal law and regulations." We have with us now Mike Hunter, Oklahoma Attorney General. He led the state's lawsuit. Mike, good morning.
Good morning. How are y'all?
When I visited you in your office maybe a year ago and you talked about this case, you said you were looking forward to trial, you had confidence in your laws, you had confidence in your state. I guess that confidence paid off. At the same time, you were asking for $17 billion and you only got $572 million. So how satisfied are you this morning?
Well, anytime you win a case and the verdict is in excess of $500 million, I think that's a W, Tony, any way you look at it.
Well said.
Very well
said.
So
we were looking to deal with the state's crisis, with the consequences of the oversupply, the mismarketing, the fraudulent practices of Johnson & Johnson in a comprehensive way over multiple years. But this is a significant judgment. When you put it together with the settlements of two other defendants, we've got almost $1 billion to deal with our problems here in Oklahoma.
Can you explain to us, Mike, exactly what Johnson & Johnson did? I know at one point you said they created a public nuisance by fueling the crisis. Can you lay that out specifically, what they do?
Well, this shameful stream of commerce began back in the mid-'90s when Johnson & Johnson conspired with other industry partners to begin creating this situation with regard to, we've got to treat pain. And so if you don't treat pain, you're not being responsible to your patient. So they needed a magic drug, and the magic drug was opium. So they bought a poppy farm down in Australia. Their subsidiaries, wholly owned subsidiaries, ran the poppy farm. And for the last 2 decades, they've been supplying 60% of the active pharmaceutical ingredient for prescription opioids in this country. So when we call them the kingpin of the crisis in Oklahoma and this country, we mean what we say. Mm-hmm. Subsequent to that, they've mismarketed the products, they've fraudulently misrepresented the addictive qualities, they conspired with their industry partners to head off changes that would have abated the epidemic, certainly would have improved the ability of policymakers to deal with it. So Johnson & Johnson is in this up to their neck. And Alex Gorski needs to step up, quit being a hypocrite, and write a check.
Mike, you're saying they knew what they were doing?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Hunter,
absolutely.
Okay.
Johnson & Johnson says they are not going down without a fight. They plan to appeal. They said that the decision is flawed, and they said that you, quote, failed to present evidence that the company's products or actions created that public nuisance. Why do you think they are taking that position? And is the evidence and where is the evidence? What's the evidence you see that Johnson & Johnson broke the law?
Well, they must have been at a different trial for the 7 weeks that we were here in Norman, or they've had an attack of amnesia. The judge's order clearly establishes their culpability with regard to what's happened in this state. And so they can ignore that. They can deal in double talk and some kind of Orwellian spin about what's happened in Oklahoma with regard to this decision. But the judge clearly found that they were responsible. And they've been assessed over $500 million, and we expect them to pay. Again, we expect the CEO of this company to step up, quit being a hypocrite, write the check so we can start dealing with the mess that they've created here in Oklahoma.
Mr. Attorney General, people are now going to be looking north of you to Ohio, where there is a massive consolidated case involving lots of opioid manufacturers and distributors. What does the ruling in your case mean for that bigger picture case and for the larger crisis of opioid addiction in this country?
Well, I hope it's helpful to my fellow attorneys general around the country. There's a 7-week record now that establishes the conduct not only of Johnson & Johnson but other opioid manufacturers, what they conspired to do, what they ignored, what they misrepresented. So I hope it's a template for the rest of the country. I hope it's a template for those who are trying to seek redress for their clients, cities and counties and states. That's something that we feel very proud about. We tried this case. We did what we needed to do. We made a record. And I can't say enough about the courage the judge showed in this case by looking at the facts and finding this company responsible for what they've done to Oklahomans.
Certainly a big win for you, Mr. Hunter. Certainly that.
Well, thank you.
So many lives lost. Thank you so much.